Good evening. I'd like to call this December 5th meeting to order. It's a little different this evening because the board's organizational meeting. So in accordance with General Statutes 153A-39, the manager typically calls the first meeting to order so that nominations can be taken for the position of chairman to serve for the ensuing year. Once that's done, the position of vice chairman will be nominated and selected, and then the board will go through some other organizational business to get the meeting started. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to nominate individuals to serve the position of chairman for the ensuing calendar year.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Lindsey Donovan as chairman for next year.
Any other nominees for the position of chairman? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to close the nominations. I'll ask in a second. Motion by Commissioner Dennis, seconded by Vice Chairman Louder. Now I'll entertain a motion or a second to the motion to nominate Commissioner Donovan for the position of chairman.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner or Chairman Morton made that second. Now I'll ask all those in favor of that motion to say aye. Aye. And opposed? Like sign. Hearing none, the motion is passed. Congratulations, Chairman Donovan.
The next thing on our agenda is to receive nominations for vice chair. I'd welcome a nomination at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Gene McIntyre for vice chair.
Okay. Commissioner Morton nominates Gene McIntyre. Are there any other nominations? Do I have a second for nomination for Mr. McIntyre?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Louder. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you.
Before we proceed, let me stop and take a second to thank Commissioner Morton, who served as the chair for our past year, Commissioner Louder, who served as our vice chair. We thank you very much for your service and your leadership. Next on our agenda is we want to approve the public official bonds for tax administrator, finance officer, register of deeds, and sheriff. I'd entertain a motion to approve those bonds.
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Dennis. Have a second. Commissioner McIntyre. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It carries 5-0. Next, we'd like to entertain from the floor appointments for the boards and committees that the commissioners serve on. I'd recognize anyone who likes to make a nomination
Mr. Chairman,
at this time.
I would suggest that we use the thing that we worked on by sending stuff back and forth, and as presented here. Chairman of Economic Development would be me. Alternate for Economic would be Commissioner Louder. Member for Board of Health would be Commissioner Louder. Member for Piedmont Behavioral would be Commissioner Morton. Member for Social Services Board would be Vice Chairman McIntyre. Member for Library Board of Trustees, Vice Chairman McIntyre. Airport Authority is myself. Alternate to the Airport Authority is Chairman Donovan. Chairman for the Fire District is myself. Member for the Albemarle Downtown Development Commission is Commissioner Morton. Member for Senior Services Board is Commissioner Morton. Member for the RPO, which is Rural Transportation Planning Organization, is Chairman Donovan. The alternate for the RPO is Vice Chair McIntyre. Member to the Stanley Water and Sewer Authority is Commissioner Louder, and the alternate for the Sewer Authority will be Chairman Donovan. And I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Dennis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Louder. Those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Okay, the next order of business is to establish our meeting dates for 2012. Commissioner meetings are held the first and third Monday of each month, except in June, July, August, and September, where we only have one meeting, which is designated on the list in front of you. And then we also have some rescheduled dates due to holidays. In January, it'd be Tuesday, January the 3rd instead of Monday, January 2nd, which is the observance of New Year's Day. And then we'd also meet on Tuesday, January the 17th for the observance of the Martin Luther King holiday. Also in September, we meet on Tuesday the 4th rather than Labor Day itself, since that is a holiday. I would entertain a motion to establish meeting dates for 2012.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
I would make a motion that we accept these dates with the exception of July 2nd, that is vacation week, and we will just have met the last week of June probably for budget process. So I would suggest that we change July 2nd to July 9th, which would be the next Monday.
Okay.
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Okay, Commissioners, you have that in the form of a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Let me add one thing. Also on our original sheet, we had October 17th as a Monday. Actually, that is October 15th, and it was changed on a separate sheet. So I include that in the motion.
Okay, you have that correction to the original motion. Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Dennis. Any questions or suggestions? If not, hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. At this time, I'd like to announce that during any regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners, the County Commissioners, in order to act in their capacity as Board of Governors for the Greater Baden Water and Sewer District or for the Piney Point Water District, may, at their discretion, recess the Commissioners' regular meeting and reconvene as the Board of Governors of either of the two entities in order to conduct business matters related to that entity. Having concluded that portion of our meeting, I would now like to recognize Commissioner Louder for our devotion.
Thank you, Chairman Donovan. Let us bow our heads. Almighty God, bless our nation and make it true to the ideas of freedom and justice and brotherhood for all who make it great. Be close to our president and our statesmen. Give them vision and courage as they ponder decisions affecting peace and the future of the world. Heavenly Father, we give thanks for all thy gifts. Make us more deeply aware of our duties and responsibilities as public servants and as citizens. Direct us in all our doings with thy most gracious favor, and further us with thy continual help, that in all our works, begun, continued, and ended, we may praise thee. Grant that we may live and work together in brotherly unity to our own well-being and the prosperity of this community. In his name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. At this time, we are going to consider any adjustments to the agenda and an approval of the agenda. My understanding is we're going to pull number 4, utilities. We're going to seek more bids than were presented, and also we're going to add a voter ID resolution to the consent agenda. Are there any other changes?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as you just stated and put the resolution as number 4 and pull item number 4 with utilities.
We were going to let the resolution be a part of the consent agenda? Is that?
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay, all right. You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Dennis. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move forward. The first item on our agenda tonight is to present a retirement award to Keith Whitley. Mr. Whitley, if you'll come forward and join us at the table, please. Here to recognize Keith Whitley tonight. Keith began working for Stanley County in the Mapping Land Records Department on November 1st, 1977. During his 34 years of service to the county, he was instrumental in establishing the Mapping and Land Records Department we have today. While with the county, Keith earned 2 designations, one as a senior mapper through the North Carolina Property Mappers Association, and another as a North Carolina Certified Property Mapper through the Department of the Secretary of State. During his military career, Keith served as a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves, with 2 of those years being served after the September 11th attacks. In June 2008, he retired with 37 years of service to our country. Thank you so much. In his retirement, he plans to spend more time with family and will continue to work on a part-time basis in the tax mapping department. I saw him the other night out to eat, and you're already there. We have a very nice clock presentation that we give to our retirees, and on the inside is inscribed, "Presented to Keith A. Whitley for faithful and dedicated service to the citizens of Stanley County. On this occasion of your retirement, we extend our sincere appreciation for your service and wish you even greater achievement and rewards in the future. Presented this 5th day of December 2011, Stanley County Board of Commissioners." Our next order, our next order of business is the annual presentation of the audit for the year ended June 30, 2011. Presenters tonight are Toby Henson, our finance director, but more importantly, Marcy Spivey, Martin Starnes and Associates. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing a little bit of time with us tonight to let us come out and do this presentation for you. As always, we've had a really good year at Stanley County. Your staff has worked very hard to make sure everything is on time. They get out information as quickly as we ask for it, so we really appreciate that with Toby and Melissa and the rest of the finance department. All right. An unqualified opinion means that the financial statements are fairly stated. There's a lot of accounting talk behind that, but it basically means that you had a clean opinion in the current year. No findings or question cost relates to your single audit. Stanley County, by the amount of money they receive every year, is a single audit. And what that means to us auditors is that we have to come out and make sure that the finance department is reviewing what is required. We come out and look at it and make sure that those things are being followed. In the current year, we're saying there are no findings or question costs, meaning that those things that we looked at, we found no errors. and also no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies really talks about the internal controls. As part of our duties, we come out here and look at the internal controls in the finance department, and if there was something that we felt was a material weakness or a significant deficiency, that would also be in your report. Again, none in this year. I'll quickly go over some of the things that we do. It seems like we only see you once a year, and even though it feels like I was just here a couple of weeks ago, it has been a whole year. But every year we start off with our planning and risk assessment. A lot of that has to do with the single audit information that we look through, but we have to assess what might be a higher risk area, and we focus a little bit on that. The interim procedures that we do are a lot of that. We come out and do our internal control walkthroughs and see if there are weaknesses that we need to identify. And part of that process is that we want to be able to tell you as early on in the year if we find something that we think needs some tweaking, then we want to know as early on, not after June 30th. The final procedures are just that. We come out and make sure that things tie together and do the financial reporting, and then we come out here. When we talk about the revenues and expenditures, you can see 2010 compared to 2011. The revenues actually decreased over the prior year, but the expenditures decreased even more. So you had a slight, overall you had a slight, very slight increase in your fund balance, but that didn't have to do with revenues going up. That was because expenditures went down. One of the things that I wanted to talk about with fund balance, every year prior to this there had been just two portions of fund balance, and in the current year we had GASB 54, which they kind of nicknamed the fund balance standard. But what it did is it took those two pieces of fund balance and turned it into 5. I don't want to take a lot of time with that because you'll see it in your report, but starting on Exhibit C, where you normally just saw fund balance, you're going to see non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. That non-spendable is really things like prepaid assets and inventory, non-convertible items at that time. Restricted is generally external restrictions, so laws, grantors, that type of thing would be all the money that you'll see in that restricted category. And then committed is basically things that the board commits. So if you've got a capital project fund and you've done a resolution, it's kind of a high level of commitment, and so it goes in that level. Assigned is just a little bit lesser of a commitment. It's something that you guys might vote on for this year, but it'll expire at year end. And then the unassigned is everything else that doesn't fit into one of those categories. So I think, my opinion is this is one of those trying to get closer to a little bit of transparency. They want to see levels down. What is the strongest hold on fund balance, and then you work your way down. The available fund balance, while we just did these 5 steps of fund balance, we didn't talk about available fund balance, but it's a kind of a portion of what we were just talking about. This number is important because it's what the LGC looks at to determine how you stand among your peers. And the calculation of that is, again, we start on that Exhibit C, but you can take that total fund balance less just the non-spendable items, and then that stabilization by state statute was the old reserve by state statute, new name. So that available fund balance is what that LGC percentage is calculated from. When we look at your fund balance position, this is just a calculation of what we were just talking about. You started off at that 15.9 million. You have 51,000 in non-spendable, and then your stabilization by state statute is 7.3 million, leaving the county's available fund balance at 8.5 million. That stabilization by state statute is very similar to prior year reserve, and it's a lot of your accounts receivable. It's held basically in an area that can't be spent because you don't have it yet. If we recalculate last year, your available fund balance would have been 6.7, so it's increased by 1.7 million. When we look at your total fund balance in the general fund, you'll see that it actually decreased in real numbers at 400,000, but the majority of that was actually a transfer out to utility and airport funds of about 400 and some thousand, so you really made about $7,000 in the current year versus a loss. Again, this reserve by state statute calculation, that's just how it's really calculated. I think it was important for everyone to be able to see what that really, how that's really calculated. I won't read it all to you. You can look at it later, and just so you know how that comes about. And this available fund balance is a percent of the general fund expenditures and transfers out. This is the calculation. This is the number that the LGC is looking for. The LGC recommends a minimum of 8%, which is only 1 month. 25% would be 3, so you're right in the middle. You're at about a little over, or right at about 2 months. We take a quick look at your overall revenues and expenditures, and we start with the revenues. We always talk about the top 3 because we could get into a lot of little details, but the majority, 84% of your revenues are made of the 3 big things, and that's ad valorem taxes, your restricted intergovernmental, and your sales and services. Your ad valorem taxes, 53%. That's average. I mean, that's kind of how everybody sits. If I were to get a bunch of pies from a bunch of different counties, we'd all probably be around in that 50% mark. So those are reasonable pieces of pie compared to others. Your ad valorem, now I'm going to get really boring because a lot of your stuff stayed very consistent with the prior year, and there's really not a lot to say. Your ad valorem taxes, they only increased by $190,000, which for Stanley County, that's about 1%. Your restricted intergovernmental actually decreased about 9%, but this is your Health and Human Services, and these are the grants. So your grants went down, therefore the restricted intergovernmental really went down with that. And again, that's a fluctuating thing. It could be next year it comes back up. I kind of doubt it, but it does fluctuate depending on what the state is doing. Your sales and services, this again stayed consistent. This is only about a 2% change over last year. When we flip over to the expenditures, we've got these same pieces showing what your top 3 are. Your top 3 expenditures are about 75%. That's a pretty clean cut right there. But your human services, education, and public safety are generally the top 3 for Stanley County. When we look specifically at human services, this also decreased, but it also went along with those revenues that decreased, therefore the expenditures decrease, about the same. Education stayed pretty consistent. It increased about 6% over the prior year. Public safety stayed almost the same, about 1% change over the prior year, about $100,000. Now the enterprise funds, these are a little bit more difficult to read. We like to look at cash flow from operations and compare that to the debt, because when we talk about cash flow from operations, we're really looking at what did they do on their own without transfers in and without other borrowing money. This is where what they were really doing. You see cash flow from operations of Greater Baden, about $29,000. Piney Point was about $26,000. The utility fund was negative, and the airport fund was negative. I think you've probably talked about that quite a bit, so I won't talk about it a whole lot more, but I'm sure that it's been talked about. When we look at this, the enterprise fund is a little bit different because it's shown kind of in 2 different ways. This, on the full accrual basis, looks like everybody had an operating loss in the current year. But what we like to point out is this full accrual actually shows depreciation, which isn't a real cost. So if we look at the first at Greater Baden, it actually had depreciation of about $360,000. So it would have actually made a little bit more. That Piney Point, the depreciation was about $37,000. So again, that was utility fund had $789,000, and airport fund had $956,000. These state and local conditions that are out there, that's just for your information. It's not something that I'll read through each one. What we are really trying to say with that is to just continue to be diligent with your revenues. One of the things that we have seen is some people have been a little bit slow in filing for reimbursement, and it really wears on the county. It might take a whole lot longer to get your reimbursements, and some are actually losing their reimbursement. A time lapse passes, and they're being much more strict than they ever have been as far as the state deciding whether or not you can have your money. So if you have reimbursements, be sure to start putting those out there as quick as you can. Again, this is some of the same things I'm sure you're already hearing about, the property tax revenues and sales tax revenue. Sales tax revenue actually grew a little bit for some people in the first quarter, or in the fourth consecutive quarter, so maybe there is going to be a slight uptick for us. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you so much for your presentation,
You're
Commissioners.
welcome.
Do you have any questions or anything that you'd like to discuss at this time?
Just appreciate their hard work and the finance department's hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I'd entertain a motion at this time from Commissioners that we accept the audit as presented. Motion by Commissioner Dennis. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Louder. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you so much. Next item is to consider a refinance of BB&T school construction loan. Presenter Toby Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The county has an opportunity to refinance our school construction loan, which is currently with BB&T, which is currently being financed at a rate of 4.48%. And BB&T is offering a revised rate to reduce it down to 3.67%, which would calculate into about a $755,000 savings over the life or the term of the loan. The current balance on this is a little over $11.6 million, and with it being over the $10 million bank qualified limit, it will require to do two separate refinancings. One will be done this month by December 31st, which will be for somewhere close to $6.3 million. Then the rest of it, which will be probably a little over $5.3 million, will be refinanced in January, the next calendar year. And this is basically just what I consider a simple rate reduction. I asked the representative from BB&T, who's over the governmental finance area, what kind of fees are involved with this, and he basically said there would be none. You don't have your bond attorney or financial advisors or all that we had to deal with the refinancing of the jail construction loan, which the issuance cost there totaled totaled probably around $30,000. So we're not going to have any of that going to be involved. So basically, it's just a simple reduction in the rate, and maturity will be the same. There's 17 years left. The term or maturity will not change, and so again, that's hopefully it appears to be just a simple process. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Toby. Commissioners, are there any questions? I believe you covered it very well. Thank you for that. Hearing no questions, I'll consider a motion to approve that we proceed with this refinancing. Motion by Commissioner Dennis. Second by Commissioner McIntyre. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Same. So thank you, Toby. We appreciate that. Appreciate your good work and appreciate the savings that the county citizens will recognize.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, and I would entertain motions to approve.
So move.
Motion to approve by McIntyre, second by Dennis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that concludes our scheduled items for the agenda. Next thing, we're going to move to public comment, but before we do so, we have some guests with us tonight. The one I'd like to recognize, we have a lot of guests and appreciate you being here, but the guest that I'd like to recognize is Troop 82, Boy Scout Troop, and Mike Massey is the Scoutmaster. I'd love for you guys to stand. Thank you for being here. I understand some of these gentlemen are working on merit badges and trying to learn more about government, and I think this is a great place for Mr. Massey to bring them tonight to learn about that. For our public comment section, we have so far approximately 12 people who have signed up to speak. Are there any others who have not signed up that are wishing to speak tonight? Okay, having seen none, in just a minute we will call you to the podium in the order in which you appear here, and we're asking that each speaker speak for 3 minutes so that we can be consistent with everyone. We also ask you to hold your comments or applause so that we can be fair to everyone and not interrupt anyone as they speak. As a preface to the comments tonight, County Commissioners would like to make a statement, and we have a short PowerPoint presentation that we'd like to do. Okay. I'm going to try not to be rude, but I'm also going to try to meet your needs. Is this okay right here, Leon? I don't want to stand with my back to you, but we'll see if we can make it work this way. Yeah, in the Chamber of Commerce Economic Summit recently, Keith Crisco talked about the fact that our community needs to seek to be unified on the issue of relicensing. And I realize that there are a lot of opinions and emotions on both sides, but I'm hoping that we can work towards some benefit, some outcome that's going to be best for our county. County commissioners definitely are interested in economic development. Part of our core function is to seek economic development, which includes jobs in Stanley County. And we need to use whatever assets are available to get those. If we lived in Charlotte, we could be easily talking about interstate highways. If we live where there's mountains or the coast, we might be talking about tourism and utilizing those assets. Certainly, one of the things that we would fight for is to build roads or build water and sewer or have gas lines or rail or highways. Those are the things that we know are tools or assets that can be used to develop one's county. And certainly that's what we're interested in too. We're seeking to utilize whatever asset that we have. It just so happens that our county is blessed with water. And we want to utilize that asset to develop our county. One of the questions at the Economic Summit actually was, what can set us apart? And the very thing that can set us apart is the fact that we have access to the Yadkin River. Commissioners are charged with making prudent decisions, best decisions, long-term decisions. We don't want to look at just what's best for that audit that we just saw for the current year. But we want to look and see what's going to be best for our children and our grandchildren. Those scouts that stood up, for example, we want to try to make a decision that's going to be best for them when they reach our age. Part of what we've had to look at as a result of that is the offer that's before us that that Alcoa has presented, that Cleantech has presented. And several of the things we're looking at is the relationship between Alcoa and Cleantech, the record of the investor group. Some of you are aware of that, either Ohio or Mississippi. And also, we're interested to know whether if another company was interested in locating at the Baden Business Park that didn't require the issuance of a hydroelectric license, would Alcoa welcome them? There is, in fact, that company. Similar investment, similar jobs, not requiring a hydroelectric license. Would Alcoa accept them tonight and accept their offer? One of the things we want to do tonight is to make sure that we've got good information. If my clicker will work. So, again, I'm trying not to be rude. I'm trying to not turn my back to you. One of the things that we definitely are looking at is information that's being presented both publicly but also to us. So in this case, to begin with, the statement that we read about in the newspaper and hear from others is that there's $30 million of payroll within Stanley County at the Baden Business Park. We just want to clarify that. There has been $30 million of payroll offered, but 87% of that is guaranteed in Stanley County, which means that's closer to $26 million payroll within Stanley County. Small difference, but we're just trying to make sure that you've got clear information. The next thing we want to make sure about is that in Alcoa's statement, or the statement that's presented to the public, is that there will be $4 million of investment, $400 million of investment within 5 years. Again, what is being presented to us is there will be $400 million of investment. $300 million of investment will be taxable. $225 million will be taxable within Stanley County. So that's a little bit different number than maybe what you are getting. My understanding as well is that that doesn't necessarily mean that there'll be $225 million at the plant site. As I read the proposal from Alcoa, the language indicates all of their assets, which means that $225 million could be put into the improvement of the hydroelectric dams, and that would count as well. The other statement that goes along with this is that because of that investment, there'll be $2 million in additional tax revenue for Stanley County. $225 million generates closer to 1.5 in taxes, 1.5 million in taxes. But we also know that a lot of this investment may be in equipment, not just fiscal plant, and equipment does depreciate. I think we're going to provide you with a chart that shows that in year one, I actually want to come back to that, so don't help me remember to come back to that idea. In year one of the 400 million, or actually 225 million taxable income in Stanley, the taxes would be 1.5. Again, it's a difference of about $500,000 than what's being reported. But also, if this investment is put into equipment, then there's a depreciation schedule so that within 10 years, the depreciation or ad valorem taxes would be down to $56,250,000, and the amount of taxes at that point would be $376,875 per year. Again, a difference than the $2 million that has been mentioned as a possible benefit to Stanley County citizens. In the proposal, the target date for job creation is 4 years from the anniversary date of any agreement. And the target date for investment is 5 years from January 1st, 2011. So neither the jobs or the investment are promised for the next several years. So when someone comes and says, we want to make sure that we get these jobs today because we're going to have taxes next year. No, we're talking about 4 or 5 years out. Now, there may be investment as the companies ramp up, just like one of the reasons why that date of January 1 is there is to include what's already being put in through ERI. So there will be a ramping up of that number, but we won't have full investment nor full jobs offered to us for 4 or 5 years. I want to make sure, too, that there will be revenues going to the company during that period of time. One of the things that has been a concern for commissioners is the idea of not getting a static amount. The statement from Alcoa says that they're going to provide up to $1.2 million a year if jobs and investment are not met. That's $50 million. That sounds like a lot of money to me. But then, when you look at it, if you take a static amount, the power to buy things over time drops substantially. I'm really glad that I didn't negotiate in 1975 a salary that I was going to have my whole career, because the inflation would have eaten me alive. What we're showing on the chart here is that $1.2 million received in year 1, 2012, for example, by 2022 will buy you $828,000 plus. By year 20, buys you a little over $500,000, and in the 50th year, the buying power of that $1.2 million is $188,000. It doesn't look so good for these guys, does it? Maybe look okay for us if we got $1 million next year, but in year 50, the buying power we get for allowing this project is $188,000. On the flip side, Alcoa has talked about getting $25 million in revenue generated annually by the project. Actually, I think their application may say 46. I don't really believe either of those numbers, but let's go with $25 million. So if we say that they're going to get $25 million a year, utilizing a 3.15% inflation rate for electricity, means again that in year 10, now they're receiving $33 million, year 20, $45 million, year 30, $61 million, all the way up to $114 million a year in year 50 when they want the application or the license to end. I hope you got that. We're going from $1.2 million down to $188,000, and they're going from $25 million in revenues conservatively to $114 million a year. That doesn't make sense to me or to the commissioners. Alcoa's statement is that they're going to provide up to $1.2 million a year. Again, if the jobs aren't met, could be worth up to that $50 million over that period of time. But the funds do not go to the county. Alcoa wants the funds to go into a special trust for economic development, co-managed by the county and the North Carolina Department of Commerce. The county will not, under the current proposal, have full discretion over these funds. Again, those of you who have said that we need this money for pick your poison, education, whatever, we're not going to get that money for those things necessarily. The proposal is that it will be decided by both the commissioners and the Secretary of the Department of Commerce how that money would be used, and the focus primarily in the language that we have is toward economic development, not human services, not education, and not safety. Remember the pie chart that was just presented to us, those big 3 items. The money wouldn't necessarily go to some of those big 3 items. It would go toward economic development. It'd go to an economic development trust. It's been said that the jobs and investment associated with clean tech will make this a generational project. We don't disagree with that. We did meet with clean tech. We said, come on, we'd love to have you. we'd love to have this type of investment and this type of jobs. And then they said the only way we're going to come, because Alcoa is, after all, investing, $50 million in the project, so they also own the site. They said the only way that we're going to come is if we get the hydroelectric license. Again, that's not necessary. We know of a company that's interested in coming without the license. So what if clean tech never comes? Alcoa gets the hydroelectric license, and in the year 50 makes $114 million. What do you get? What do you get? So what we've said all along, continue to say, and our focus is on the license. We are planning to meet with Clean Tech. We're, I think, going to confirm that tonight. It's already been reported, I think, in the press that our meeting with them is scheduled on Friday. We're still going to meet with them. We're very interested in them bringing some jobs. But a long-term license worth billions should include some long-term enforceable guarantee that increases with inflation. Or we should have a license reopener that allows us to consider other options if there's non-performance. Also, financial penalties for the non-performance of job and investment commitments should hold the county harmless. And $1.2 million does not come close to replacing $25 or $26 million in annual payroll and $225 million in taxable investment. A penalty is supposed to incentivize performance, not the opposite. And what we mean by that is that if I were going to be in business and I was going to make 25 or 50 or whatever million a year, and it's up to me to decide, do I go out and invest $50 million in a company that's going to utilize 80 to 90% of the power generated by the project? And do I guarantee a community that they're going to have investment in jobs? Or do I pay $1.2 million and go away? I know what I would do. And I think you know what you would do too if you were put in that position. So this is the information that we're providing. And we're interested in hearing your comments tonight. So Andy will go ahead and move to the list that we have. Let's hear what everybody has to say tonight first. We'll see. Okay, let me just repeat. Excuse me. Let me just repeat. I have a list of approximately 12 people here. I'm going to call them in order. What I'll probably do is to call a name and then the name behind it and ask for that second person to come up and possibly sit on the front row right there. I think there's a chair right there on the aisle, and be prepared so we can move along and won't hold people up. The first person registered to speak is Mike Snyder. The second person registered to speak is Deanne Chandler. And again, if you will, pay attention to our county manager. He's going to be holding up the signs that indicate how much time that you have. Welcome. And let me say, if I don't say this to everybody, I was getting ready to say, welcome Mr. Snyder to speak. I'd like for everybody to get that same message. Welcome. We appreciate your participation, appreciate your interest in this issue, and so thank you very much for being here. Mr. Snyder.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Donovan and Commissioner McIntyre on your election to your respective offices. I'm here tonight to speak about water. And last week, the Consumer Union published a report that 10% of the juice samples it tested from 5 different brands had total arsenic levels that exceeded the federal drinking water standards. Inorganic arsenic is a known carcinogen, and I think that amplifies the danger to our food supply for not having ample clean water. The World Bank estimates that global agriculture will require 30 to 45% more water by 2030. That's just 20 years away. The Catawba River is being exposed to a plan by Union County, North Carolina, and Lancaster County, South Carolina, to expand water sales from the Catawba River, commercial usage. The state of Michigan passed the Great Lakes Compact in 2009, which protects them from corporate large-scale water diversions. The Great Lakes have 20% of the world's fresh water supply. There are 4 major water-focused, electronically traded funds that have been implemented since 2005. That tells me that water is becoming a commodity in the Wall Street investment business, thus its value. In light of the above facts, I urge you to not allow a corporation to obtain a license that will maximize its profit at the expense of clean water for the public good. In history, there are many stories of which we would all familiar with, but one in particular was there was a man and a woman in an idyllic setting that succumbed to the temptation of eating an apple that would allow them to have a great gift come to them. As we know, it didn't happen, and neither will the promises that are being offered to us now. I can assure you that your efforts to protect the rights of the public will be illuminated in the future history of our community and our state. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for not being blinded by the bright lights of corporate greed and personal profit. Thank you.
Next speaker is Deanne Chandler, and following her will be Charles Crawley.
Okay, I don't have anything written down. I am Deanne Chandler. I'm a retired teacher from Stanley County Schools. In fact, I worked for Mr. McIntyre for a while. But I'm here because my son, Marshall, is a senior at UNC Charlotte. He's a physics major, and he will graduate in December. And he was so excited when he found out about Clean Tech coming, because he says, "Oh, good, that'll be a great job for me, Mom. I really hope I get that job." Then he was so disappointed when he found out what was happening with that. And after listening to what you were just saying, I think it all comes down to money. And I would like to keep my son in Stanley County, but I think right now he's going to be heading to Charlotte. You know, and if we want to keep our young people in Stanley County, we need to have some jobs for them. And if there is another company that's willing to come to where Alcoa was, I think we should know about them and find out something about them. And, you know, maybe Marshall could get a job with them if they could come. But, you know, I think we need to be thinking more about jobs for our people of Stanley County and not all about all this money thing, you know. Money is the worst thing in the world to be thinking about. You know, we need jobs in Stanley County, and we need our young people to stay in Stanley County, and I don't see our young people staying in Stanley County. I'm starting to think that Stanley County is a retirement town. Yeah, and I don't want
We've asked for there to be no applause, and we are going to keep that. And if we need to clear the room, we will. We want to be fair to the speakers that have come.
I don't want Stanley County to be a retirement community. I would like for us to be a lively place, a place where people would like to come to live and work. So I would like to see us get some jobs here. So if Clean Tech can't come, then let us know about this other company. If they could come, that would be great. But I really don't understand all of this stuff you were just talking about. Like I said before, it's all about money, and I really think money is the root of all evil to me. But I would like to see some jobs come to Stanley County.
Thank you, Ms. Chandler. Charles Crawley is next, followed by Ron Bryant.
Mr. Commissioner, Commissioners, this evening I want to talk to you about 2 items. Education. Again, we're 84th out of 100 counties in the money spent per student on education. Yet Clean Tech offers to give us $500,000 per year for every year in production. When you run that out, it comes out to about $700,000 a year when you figure in the ad valorem taxes, and those figures probably would go up because there'll be inflation. Lindsay, on your diagram earlier, you showed inflation for showing the revenue generated, but did you have paying the workers to run that, or what it costs to maintain that facility? Did you have inflation built into their expenses? I doubt it. 2 out of every 5 of the top 5 employers in Stanley County are private enterprise. The rest are all run by the county or the state. 11 out of the top 25 are private business. This county has become a socialist state. Seems to be an anti-business environment here that has been being created. Horsehead asked to come in. They didn't ask for anything having to do with the power, but we couldn't spend the money to put in the water and sewer. So there's the same answer as what you just presented, that somebody else wants to come without the stipulation. Let's look at that $300 million investment. That would be a big improvement to Stanley County. We're sitting here at better than 11% unemployment. There's jobs. If any of you commissioners had bothered to show up when ERI had their job fair, you would have saw the lines all the way around the firehouse at Baden of people wanting jobs. And these are jobs with benefits. I think we need to do a lot more looking at the total picture as opposed to the greed of a few.
Ron Bryant, followed by Nancy Gatovi.
Thank you, Commissioners. I was not aware of any of this controversy until 5.5 years ago. Until then, I thought of Alcoa as a good company, even represented on the Stanley County seal. My expert testimony tonight is based on 2 very relevant credentials: a 32.5-year professional career with a good, responsible international corporate citizen, and a 20-year volunteer career with the Catawba and now the Yadkin Riverkeeper organizations. Through the Yadkin Riverkeeper investigations, we have learned of a huge laundry list of environmental and health damage caused by Alcoa. But it is not just the damage that concerns me. It is also Alcoa's response to the damage. False data, false statements, unfulfilled promises, delay in posting fish advisories, etc. These are not the responses of a good corporate citizen. Now, 9 years after essentially shutting down Baden Works, Alcoa is making big promises of redevelopment, but only if tied to a license renewal. Again, this is not representative of a good corporate citizen. The good corporate citizen would have begun the transition to alternate employment opportunities and use of the site 9 years before shutdown. Shutdown was no surprise to Alcoa, but not getting a FERC license was. They thought they would get a rubber stamp renewal, giving them exclusive and free use of our water for another 50 years. The possibility of their losing this cash cow has them causing entirely too much discord in our community. Yet another example of a bad corporate citizen. Finally, we have learned that we are not alone. Alcoa has caused similar environmental damage and discord around the world. My expert recommendations are: recapture the FERC license. The lease is up and remove the Alcoa representation from the county seal. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nancy Gatovy, and then Jimmy Dick.
Thank you. I'm Nancy Gatovy. I'm the Executive Director of Central Park NC. And Central Park NC is an 8-county rural economic development organization, a not-for-profit organization with the mission to grow a new regional economy based on the sustainable use of the region's natural and cultural resources. We believe that the Yadkin River is perhaps the most critical natural resource in central North Carolina in terms of potential wealth generation. Central Park NC and our board of directors are not at all convinced that a new license for Alcoa represents the best economic use of the Yadkin River. Last week, we commissioned a statewide survey of 500 residents, and we've just received the results of the poll that indicates that North Carolinians overwhelmingly oppose the granting of a new license to Alcoa. And the details of this poll will be released as early as tomorrow. We're also preparing to conduct a federally funded economic impact study and analysis of the potential value of the Yadkin River hydroelectric projects as a source of inexpensive energy to attract industry to the state and to this region, as other states have done. For example, the economic development programs run by New York's Public Power Authority have been a significant revenue opportunity for their state and a critical means of promoting New York as a competitive business location. We anticipate that this study will be completed early in this spring of 2012. We'll also be looking specifically at, one, whether and how hydroelectricity has the ability to attract industry to a region, whether it makes better economic sense to allocate the majority of power production to one company, or whether such decisions should instead be governed by the number of jobs created, planned capital investment, the types of jobs and buildings to be constructed, the ratio of power requested relative to the number of jobs created, and the extent to which the goals of the applying company fit within regional and statewide economic development plans and energy goals. As for CleanTech's December 15th deadline, we believe that the North Carolina Department of Commerce, the governor, the Stanley County Commissioners, the Stanley Economic Development Commission, and other business leaders are committed to bringing substantial jobs to the state and to this region that equate to the true value of the river and the water. CleanTech's current interest in Stanley County reflects the power of our river to create jobs. The company would be a welcomed addition to Stanley County, just as any other legitimate environmentally conscious business is. Fortunately, we already have economic development programs in place to accommodate and incentivize businesses such as CleanTech to locate here without relying on Alcoa or giving in to their arbitrary deadlines. I hope that you will allow continued discussion and research into the best long-term use of the river to create jobs and economic wealth for the citizens of North Carolina. The situation with Alcoa has, if nothing else, demonstrated that the river is worth a great deal to Alcoa and undoubtedly has similar, if not greater, worth to the people of North Carolina. Thank you.
Jimmy Dick will be the next speaker, followed by Chris Bramlett.
I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank the commissioners for the very difficult stance that you've taken in this issue. Last time I spoke here, I said, that we really all want jobs. And it's kind of ludicrous for anybody to think that the commissioners don't want jobs. Everybody in this room would like to see jobs come to Stanley County. And there's lots of information, it's an information age out there, where we can start to check and see who are the people that's offering the jobs and what's their track record. And, I just wanted to point out that if you look at Madison, Mississippi, and we've talked to the mayor there, and Ontario, Ohio, the mayor there, and the same principals who are behind CleanTech are the people who went there, and they made a lot of promises. And in Madison, Mississippi, that was in 2008. The city gave them a tract of land and graded it, and no footers have been poured and no jobs are there. And it's the same story in Ohio. And I know it's been difficult, the stance you've taken a lot of errors, and, a lot of people's made a lot of accusations and ugly comments. And the thing that disturbs me is it's like there's those of us who are against jobs and there's those of us who are for jobs. And that's just simply not the way it is. Let's just be sure it's real. Let's be sure we have guarantees. If they're going to post money, let's be sure it's bonded and that it's enforceable. And, Lindsay, I appreciate your numbers. It verified a lot of things I'd looked at. $25 million in revenue over a period of years is totally insignificant if you could buy the water for $1.2 million a year flat fee for 50 years. Why would anybody provide the jobs? Just pay the money. But I understand they won't guarantee the money. Won't be bonded. The comment was, if we don't perform, sue us. Well, they got a whole fleet of lawyers they got to pay anyway. So the commissioners, you could sue them. They could tie you up in the courts for 30 years. Just go forward, bring us some jobs, but just be sure they're real and we can be sure that they're enforceable. Thank you.
Chris Bramlett, who will be followed by Dale Ward.
Mr. Chairman, my natural reaction is to quote facts and figures and give you stories that you've heard over the past 5 years. There's no way I can add to any of that. So tonight I'd like to speak metaphorically. I'd like to do as Mike Snyder did and go to the Bible for a very short story that would demonstrate what I want to tell you. It's a story of Jacob and Esau, 2 brothers. Esau was the older of the brothers, and as being the older, had a right to the entire father's estate. It was called his birthright. One day, Esau was out in a field, and he smelled soup cooking. He immediately went to his brother, who was cooking the soup, and sold his birthright for that bowl of soup. Ultimately, Esau had to leave Israel, and for almost 4,000 years, he and his descendants have been denigrated and ridiculed for that one spontaneous action. We are hungry in Stanley County. We know that. But I beg you not to sell our birthright for a bowl of soup. Someone said it in an article in one of the media journals recently. If we do sell our birthright for a bowl of soup, our children and grandchildren will curse us. Thank you.
Dale Ward, followed by Harold Green.
Appreciate it letting me speak. Dale Ward here. Y'all did bring up some good points. But you know what? You don't believe Alcoa's audit. People might not believe the county's audit. That's why you get outside people to audit. The numbers are there. That's true. But we need these jobs. My kids, my grandkids, they need jobs. And y'all can make numbers however you want to make numbers. Y'all supposed to be educated people. Y'all supposed to be doing right for this county. And that's what we expect out of you. If this stuff, if it falls through, it falls through. Then it's going to go to the court system. It's going to be tied up there for decades. And my kids, my grandkids, are the ones going to suffer. And y'all may not care about that, but I do. Alcoa's been a good steward of this state, this county, for years. And all of a sudden, everybody wants to pounce on them. You've heard a lot of mistruths. Y'all helped spread some of them, and these people here, some of them that spread mistruth. Some of them, I don't know where to get the education at. Because I see them violate law. They can't even read a danger sign. Stay away sign. They pull right up to the dam. And take pictures and think they're proud of it. Well, I'm going to tell you something. These kids need some jobs out here. Right now, our roads are taking people out of this county. We want people to come to this county. These right here provide jobs for my kids, my grandkids, and y'all's for a long time. Yes, it may fall through in 30, 40 years. Who knows? You know, I can't predict what's going to happen. Y'all can't. The good Lord's going to decide what's going to happen. The water's there, and we all going to be drinking it. And the problem with the pollution of the water, most of it's upriver. And if we want to concentrate on something, we need to look at all the sewer spills been happening up there above High Rock. They've had over 200,000 gallons of sewer spill. Where do you think that stuff's coming? It's coming right down to Tuckertown. It's coming right down to Old Whitney. That's our drinking water. That's where y'all need to be focused on. You're worried about water pollution. You know, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but right now you need to be serving the citizens. And I don't know who else you're trying to serve, but you need to be serving the citizens of this county. And we need to be bringing these jobs in, and this game can happen. You know, if it don't happen, it's going to be tied up for decades. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Harold Green, followed by Bill Harwood.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to stand here and address you tonight. And I hope what I say is going to go out there too. I look at what Alcoa's been doing, and I can only imagine what they've been doing to you because of what I read in the paper. But they keep handing these little golden carrots in front of our face. Take a bite. Well, they haven't gotten close enough with it for us to take a bite yet. None of their money's been put in the bank. None of those little golden carrots have been put in the bank. So I want to say to you, I appreciate your your stance. Thank you for standing up against a corporate giant who is willing to take us for like a bunch of stupid idiots down here and take our river and use it everywhere else they want to except here in Stanley County. And as far as the pollution is concerned, pollution is real in that river. They denied it, they lied about it, and they got it proved in court. So I don't consider them a good corporate citizen whatsoever. I lived by a river, Rocky River, in Union County when I was growing up. The County Mills organization, some of those folks up the river were polluting it would die. But by the time I was 10 years, we used to eat fish out of the river all the time. By the time I was 10 years old, the river was destroyed. A friend of mine caught some fish from me when I was about 30 years old on down near Oakboro, and I took it home and dressed it. He thought it was good stuff. Old rotten stinking dye was still in it. So I have no use for corporate people who come in and do damage to the land, do damage to our water, and then want to take all of our money and leave town. So I appreciate you and I thank you for standing against that kind of corporate greed.
Bill Harwood will be followed by Dean Najak.
Thank you very much for hearing me. Number one, something hadn't been mentioned tonight. Merry Christmas to all of you. And Merry Christmas to everyone who hears this wherever they hear it. I'm sorry I didn't have time to prepare appropriate rebuttal for what was said tonight, but I'll do the best I can in the shortest time I can. I had a couple of accounting courses probably 45 years ago, and evidently my professor went to a different school than y'all's did. Y'all elevated or inflated the, added a rate of inflation, to the revenue side of the picture. Let's face it, y'all are business men. The revenue side's important, but you got to roll the cost side into it too to derive the profit side of it. And generally speaking, as you inflate the revenue side, you have to inflate the cost side too. Wages go up, the cost of materials go up. So it would have been much more informational to me if y'all would have spoke of profits and the actual profit picture rather than the revenue picture. To me, that means very little without the cost side of it. As far as Clean Tech demonstrating they're willing to have a company here without tying it to the dams, I think ERI speaks for itself on that issue. And the one possibility, if this ends up in court, the county could end up with basically nothing and a big lawyer bill, and Alcoa could have the dams. I'm not saying they will, they could. The third thing, or the last thing, if y'all are in unison in this apparent stance against Alcoa Clean Tech, so be it. It is what it is. I'll accept that. But if any one of y'all is not in unison with the group, I hope you'll have the intestinal fortitude to speak up, make a motion tonight at the meeting to drop the various lawsuits which are entangling Alcoa and Clean Tech, even if you know you're not going to get a second, or even if you know that it cannot pass, simply to give some hope to the citizens of Stanley County. Thank you.
Last speaker we have listed is Dean Najak.
Dean Najak, Yadkin River Keeper. Hopefully you can hear me. It's a little short here. I just wanted to thank you all for your leadership. You know, quite frankly, if it wasn't for your leadership, there wouldn't be any discussion about jobs here. The recycling plant would not be here. I've worked on these issues for about 20 years in the state. I've just never seen this type of bribery and blackmail that has been going on here for the last couple of weeks. I find it rather appalling. To me, it's very clear Alcoa is trying to avoid going back to trial in February because it'll be proven to them again that they've been dishonest and have falsified information. And I was really glad to hear Central Park did a poll, you know, because I realize this is a contentious issue, and I'm very sorry for that. But you start going outside this region, and it's very clear that this is just wrong. What's going on here, Alcoa does not deserve this license. And, you know, just keep in mind, especially the public here, that this river belongs to all of us, every North Carolina citizen, not just Stanley County, not people here in this community. And when you take into consideration the background of Clean Tech, the fact they burnt bridges in other communities, promising the same type of jobs that they didn't deliver on, the idea that Alcoa even has a chance at a 50-year license. After falsifying the 401 they need for the 50-year license, falsifying information, they poison this river. They poison people. Basically, everybody in this room knows people have been poisoned by this company. And, we're going to just sit here and act like they're not a good steward. They are not a good steward to this river. And so I just want to say you have every right to not trust Alcoa. You have every right to do due diligence, make sure that everything, that there's legally binding documents, as others have said before me. And it is the right thing to do. And, I totally understand why you don't trust them, that you want these documents in writing. And the fact that Alcoa refuses to do it is a clear indication that we just simply can't trust the offer that they're providing here. And, basically, I just want to end by saying, that Alcoa is a minority investor in clean tech. My understanding, about 20%. Where's the other 80% of this money coming from? Because they pulled out of other states saying that their investors pulled out. Where is the other 80% of this money coming from? Does anybody in this room have the answer where this money is coming from, the other majority investors? You don't have the answer. I don't think anybody in this room has the answer. And I appreciate you doing your due diligence and trying to get this in writing and locking this down. You're doing a great thing. Thank you.
We don't have anyone else on the list that signed up to speak, but I would entertain, if you're interested in making a 3-minute comment, come forward and state your name, and we'll allow you to speak as well.
My name is Martha Garber. I just have a few questions. At one of the earlier meetings, I talked about the business park and the article about there being no sewage. And Commissioner Dennis said that that was not true, that it was we were going to have sewage out at the business park at the airport. Has that been started? And how long do you think it'll be before it starts? Okay. And the company that Mr. Donovan talked about coming to Baden Park without being tied to the relicensing, is that a company that you guys have been in contact with? Is that what you're inferring?
I'd like to answer both of your questions.
Okay.
We actually had 2 calls last week from companies who are interested in that site, and we've shared that information with Alcoa. And what we've heard to date is they don't have any room left on the site. So, I know that they said in some of the proposals they were going to expand the site by 100 acres. So it seems that's an interesting response, but that's what we've been told, is they don't have any room on the site for these other companies. The piece of with the airport, there is sewer there. And it would be fine for light manufacturing, and so that's not an issue. It's just heavier end manufacturing, food processors, things that would be using significant water that we want to be ready for, so that we can attract all kinds of industries that would be aligned to our natural resources, and having plenty of water. Food processing would be something that we should be looking at as an industry, and we want to be able to handle their sewer needs. And so it's not that we don't have sewer there and we can't have businesses. We certainly are working to attract those, and there's a number of industries that could go there today, but we're looking at the long term and the future, and that's what we should always be looking at, and I applaud the board for doing that.
One other question, you were talking about Alcoa not doing anything for the past, or somebody talked about the last 9 years since the plant's been closed. What has the county done to bring in businesses in the last 9 years? And the other thing, since we've had an audit with the expenses, how much money has been spent fighting this lawsuit with Alcoa to date?
There's been at least $5 million spent. I can say that.
Okay. Thank you.
Who's next?
My name's Vanessa Mullenix, and I just want to have a little bit of rebuttal on a couple of things. When you was talking about the $5 million and it was really only $4 million in Stanley County. Well, Stanley County's not the only one on that river. And when Alcoa, and if you have Clean Tech come in, you're going to have people come in from Montgomery County and surrounding counties that's going to be working in this county. And so I don't think Stanley County ought to think they get every dime of employees or everything that comes out because of the jobs. And also, you was talking about the decrease in education. Clean Tech has said they would give $500,000 every year they're in production to education. So, to me, that didn't mean a whole lot. Plus, Alcoa said that they would pay the county $6+ million, and it needed to be spent on infrastructure and education. That's paying us back our tax money that you spent, this $5 million, on New York lawyers, lobbyists, and Robert Kennedy and Aaron Brockovich. They don't come cheap. So Alcoa's doing that for us, and that's why they stipulated that it had to be spent for the betterment of the people, not on New York lawyers and lobbyists. The other thing you say that you don't trust, I heard Riverkeeper say that you shouldn't trust Alcoa. What has Alcoa done? I never heard anything bad about Alcoa until the license come up. And they have done every single thing that the state has ever required of them and more. And all this talk about PCBs, the PCB levels are way below what the state requires. They are doing that on their own. They did not have to do that. They're capping where some PCBs went in, but they're doing that on their own, and they're waiting on the state. They've got everything put in, and they're waiting on the state. And the last thing I want to say real quick is we could have it all right here. We could have ecotourism, we could have jobs, prosperity, and we could have preservation of land. And the best thing, everybody's always talking about the water and how clean it is. The best thing for that is for that land to stay natural and not be developed. And I think there's some underlying motives to get a hold of that land to develop it.
Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak?
My name is Nancy Bryant, and I would like to suggest to Ms. Mullinex that she and others who think they are correct in what she just said, get the scientific documents from Riverkeeper, and they would be happy to provide them. Did I say something funny? Scientific documents. Is that funny?
Nancy, go ahead and make it.
I think the audience must misunderstand. Scientific documents are scientific documents, no matter where they come from, as long as they are scientific. Now, maybe the other thing I'd like to mention is that as a teacher for over 30 years, I very much resented the fact that Ms. Mullinex sent an email letter to parents and teachers in this county through a teacher against the county commissioners. This was against all protocol of the county school superintendent and everything else. This was underhanded. There was no place for that in this county. None whatsoever. Thank you.
We have another speaker.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your nomination. Andy, may I ask you a question? I heard you say that there was sewer available in our area. Where is that?
There's sewer available at the airport. That was
At the airport from us. We'd pump it up there. Is that what we do?
No, that sewer is treated by the city of Albemarle. It is.
Okay.
That's where our sewer line is.
I just knew that every time we have a heavy rain, ours overflows, and we don't have a capacity enough to treat what we get now. That's one of my reasons for being here. Back when the French moved in 1912, they put in almost 2 billion gallons of capacity for sewer, and then when the county redid it, we now have 500,000. Just another one of the complaints that I have about the way we're treated. My question for Dean over here, he says that the reason Alcoa didn't get the water certificate was they falsified it or something. I believe if Dean will check the records, and you all correct me if I'm incorrect, they got the water certificate, but there was a certain publisher here in the town of Albemarle who didn't put it in the paper properly as he was asked by two Alcoans. You know, for some reason, the one for Progress Energy got in there for Hydro and Blewett, but it didn't get in there, Dean, for Alcoa. I wonder why it didn't get in there. You know? Okay, Dean, as long as you know that. Also, Dean has made me a new believer. When you had a fish kill up on High Rock, the sewer came out of Thomasville, went across the river and went upriver 3.5 miles, through a couple culverts and all, and killed 3 or 4 fish up there. I was always taught that there's certain material flowed downhill only. But you know, the riverkeeper's keeping us straight. My question for you all is this map right here shows the entire watershed for the Yadkin River. Okay? If you'll let me, it shows the entire watershed of the Yadkin River, all the way from the Virginia border. You see the green line right here? Okay, Andy. Green line, watershed. Then you see Stanley County down here at the bottom. Okay? There's the red part of Stanley County that provides watershed for the Yadkin. Just this little bitty spot. And for you folks to see, that little spot is Stanley County. The rest of this watershed comes all from over the state. Okay? My question for you is, why should you get money out of this and not the entire watershed? Well, let's be fair with this thing. If we're going to soak Alcoa for money, why don't we pay everybody in the watershed? What makes it so good for you to get the money? Montgomery County has 2 powerhouses. You only have 1 powerhouse. Davidson County has 1 powerhouse. Why don't they get an equal amount of money? If it's all about money and fairness, and I know you all want to be fair, why don't we pay the whole watershed instead of this little red mark down here that's almost insignificant? Thank you.
Having no one else, okay.
Lester Galloway, I just want to thank you county commissioners for spending this $5 million out of our here, and I trust that this $5 million y'all have spent will cause Alcoa to develop this business that will create 450 jobs. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to all of you.
As I said before, we thank you for being here tonight and for your comments and for your interest in this issue. We, as I mentioned to you before, we have a meeting scheduled this week, and we look forward to that, or at least we're planning, and we'll decide in closed session. It's time on our agenda for any general comments or announcements. I'm going to start on my left with Commissioner Morton. Do you have any comments tonight?
One short comment. I congratulate you, Chairman Donovan and Vice Chairman McIntyre, on your new elected offices and follow your leadership this next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McIntyre?
No comment.
Commissioner Dennis? Commissioner Louder?
No comment.
County Manager, do you have anything to say tonight?
No comment. Thank you, sir.
How about our County Attorney?
No comment, sir. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion at this point to go into closed session to consult with the County Attorney in accordance with GS 143-318.11A3 to discuss 401 water quality permit intervention, discuss economic development in accordance with GS 143-318-1884. Motion by Commissioner Dennis.
Second.
Second by Mr. McIntyre. We're in executive session.